Guys, good morning. Knock, 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 knock. Wakey, wakey, hand off snakey. Let's get into another episode of the podcast. So, if you're coming into this one live, guys, have a beautiful start to your Monday. If it is indeed Sunday for you on this side of the world, hopefully you're having a fantastic end to the weekend. Guys, what's going on? How has the weekend been? Do tell me in the comments. I want to know what's going on. This is going to be a big episode. I'm just going to let you know in advance. Okay, so guys, just before we get started in this episode, what I noticed on the weekend's masterclass was that there were a few people that still weren't authorized on Restream. So can we just test it? I just tested it with a bunch of the UK girls and it was no problem. So hello, brother. And good morning. Can you guys go down to the link, above at the bottom, and there's a link that says Restream, or click here. So just click it. It should just take you literally 20 seconds, and then it will tell me who you are. Because at the moment, a lot of guys in here, a lot of girls in here that I haven't authorized, and so therefore I don't know who it is, so I can't tell. So I can't tell who's getting the juice. Does that make sense? All right, guys, we're going to be starting this episode in just short of 2 minutes. So who's the team looking in here? Hello, Shawnee boy. How are you, mate? This episode's going to be good for you, Sean. Hope you guys have had a beautiful start to the morning. Good morning, Coach Ez. How are you? Pam's here. Good evening, Pam. How are you? Hello, Davey boy. Dave, have you booked your flights yet? Down for the marathon scenario, guys. If you don't know, we've got 15 people actually already. That are registered for the whole of the Sydney Marathon. So it's not too late. You've missed out on the early bird pricing, but that doesn't matter. It's not that much more expensive. If you want to come along and do the 10K walk, I can give you the list, but there's like 5, 6, 7 guys and girls that are doing it. Obviously, there's a group of men that are doing the marathon as well. So if you want to be part of it, guys, just get together. The whole thing is here, we're going to meet. We're going to do a walk across the bridge. Like, it's going to be pretty damn good. And so you should get your butts down there. I think it's going to be a really, really good occasion. Hello, Jace. How are you, mate? Tez is here. Hello, Nikki boy. Xanth is here as well. Mikey boy, what's going on, mate? Wendy, how are you, girl? Mate, Wendy, you are kicking goals, aren't you? So good. Hey, Loza, how are you, mate? Good to see you back in here. I hope you had a beautiful trip. Hey, Suze, what's going on, girl? Some penny drops over the weekend. So good. Kenny and Hazel here. Guys, we're starting in 30 seconds. Jen's here as well. Hello, Jen. We've got a Facebook user, morning, and another Facebook user, morning, Jason Stewart. Just click that link above that says click here. You hit it and it worked, Mikey. Well done. Good morning, Matty Taylor. How are you, brother? Troy's in here as well, guys. We are nearly ready. And look at this. We've got 33 people watching on live. Hey, Shans. Hey, Burns. Has it worked? No, not for you. I'm in Sydney, no flights needed. Oh, okay, great, Dave. Good stuff. Okay, AK, what's going on? And Sammy's in here. I think we are ready to rock and roll with 30 plus people in here. Let's not hold up the crowd. Hello, Steph, my friend, my guidance. How are you, girl? All right, guys, let's get stuck into another episode of the podcast on the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. Now, I hope you all had a beautiful, beautiful weekend. I know that the sun is starting to shine a little bit in Australia. I was on a little FaceTime call with my mama over the weekend, and like her mood was very perky. So to those of you that are on the East Coast, at least, I hope you got some sunshine. To the rest of the world, it's pretty nice over where we are. It seems like it's pretty nice in the UK. So the smiles all around on a Monday, right? Guys, we ran a masterclass over the weekend inside of our free group that a ton of people attended. A lot of them were our clients. Hopefully you got value from that. I broke down the 5 simple steps to fat loss. If you want to replay, get in the free group and it's there. I also want to announce that we're doing something on our 4th birthday, which is this week. We are giving away to one new person an entire 6-month transformation. Free, completely free. The reason we're doing it is because we think it's good to give back every now and then. So if you're listening to the podcast, or you have a partner, or you have a friend that you think would be deserved of winning, then once the social media posts go up, you need to tag them in the posts, and get them involved. Because this is, as you know, if you're a Better Body Academy client, this is a very, very valuable thing to win and something that can change people's lives. So let's get stuck into today's episode. What I want to talk about is this idea of new levels, new devils, and the reason that most people never actually change. And let's talk about change like it's really, really hard. And the reason that change is hard is because it involves doing something different to what you're doing right now. And that's uncomfortable. There's comfort in staying the same. Would you agree? You might dislike your job, but it's comfortable to do your job because changing jobs would be uncomfortable. You might dislike your relationship, but there's a level of security that comes with knowing that you've got a partner. Yeah? And that breeds comfortability. You might like the idea of saving money to put it into the stock market or invest in a house, but saving is uncomfortable. It's easier to spend the money. You might like the idea of getting your shirt off for summer or getting back into a bathing suit, but staying the same is a level of comfort, and deciding to change is uncomfortable. And look, I know this firsthand in my own life. Absolutely. I was really good at my old job. I had a level of status within the company, freedom, I got paid okay. And even though I knew that I could do more in the world, I was comfortable. And the risk associated with me getting uncomfortable and changing, although I knew that it could possibly pay off, my perceived risk was very high. It was hard and it was uncomfortable. It's a little bit embarrassing to acknowledge this, guys, but I think if you don't have any vulnerability, you got nothing. In my last relationship, which I've been very open about what happened in that, even after finding out that my partner was cheating on me for 2 years, I considered staying in the relationship because it was comfortable. Being lonely felt really uncomfortable. It really did, especially for the first 6 weeks afterwards. More recently, I've realized that I've run a marathon on my goals list for over a decade, and I was too scared to do it. The more comfortable thing would be to pretend that I actually didn't care, it wasn't actually that important, but it was still on there after 10 years. When actually, the truth is, it pissed me off, knowing that something had stood on there for over a decade. It's not done yet, but it's done in my mind. And of high relevance to this podcast, it's way easier for me to just keep running our program the way it's running, rather than getting uncomfortable and putting in the effort to change the program, because changing the program requires a lot more work. Doing the same thing requires less work. So why is staying comfortable so alluring? Even though we know that with change, there is usually an upside, what is it about being comfortable that's so alluring? Every single person listening to this podcast would like to be doing and experiencing more than they are right now. And the reason that they're not is because the perceived benefit of the upside, so whatever it is that you might want to do, the perceived benefit of the upside is a weaker force in your life than the perceived risk of the downside. I'm going to say it again. So you think to yourself, I would like to change something. The perceived risk of the downside of failing on doing that is far stronger force in your life than the possible chance that things might actually get better if you did it. So in simple terms, to our brain, it's way more important than we survive than we thrive. Here's an example. Like, this sounds really silly. Just run these two scenarios. Let's pretend you woke up and you realized you'd lost $50 out of your wallet, versus waking up and finding $50 on the floor. For the vast majority of people, losing the $50 is much more painful than the excitement of finding the $50. The question I am asking is, why do our brains prioritize security and certainty over growing and thriving? I think it comes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm going to show you a graphic. Okay, let me bring it up on the screen right now. Here's the graphic. Okay, way back in the 1950s, there was a smart dude named Maslow who wrote a book on what motivates humans to do what they do. Now, in this book, he presented a model which showed how motivation starts to change across different stages of growth. From the base level of motivation, where all we're actually doing is trying to meet our survival needs, right through to the highest levels, becoming the best versions of ourselves. The basic idea is that a person can only move on to doing higher level things when their basic needs are adequately fulfilled. Like, that makes logical sense, right? As a stupid example to illustrate the point, a homeless person rarely goes about self-actualizing and becoming a global peace advocate or a world-class fitness coach because he hasn't yet met his basic survival needs of food and water and sleep and shelter, right? So a person will be more motivated to ensure that they have enough money to pay the rent than they will be to improve their relationships. Would you agree? It's summarized in this graphic that I'm showing on the screen if you're listening to the live podcast. Once they've achieved that, then connection and love can become the main game. Once we feel connection and love, we start to explore self-esteem and self-respect and gaining recognition and feeling a sense of, or working towards a sense of freedom. But you can't do it out of order because you have to have your needs met in these orders. And everything up to this point of esteem is about feeling what Maslow called a deficiency. If we don't have love and safety and esteem and food, we feel empty. And it's hard to push towards doing more because we don't feel we've filled the need that we first got before we try to feel something above what we physiologically need. Does this make sense, guys? Can you let us know in the comments if this actually makes sense? So where I see most of us, or most people sitting, particularly people that are in a transformation program like ours, I see most of us sitting at the esteem level. So what I mean by this is we're on the precipice of finding something huge, something next level in our life, doing the things that we've always wanted to do. But in order to explore that, whatever is out there for us, we've got to learn to trust ourselves, to let go of the self-limiting beliefs that we have, those stories that we tell ourselves every day when we slip into the old mindset, the shackles that have held us back forever and a day. And so when we start to explore something higher than that, it's scary, right? This is where our brain sort of says, hang on, leaving the comfort zone equals a risk to our survival. The truth is, you're not going to die if you start a business or if you try running a marathon, but you will definitely become uncomfortable. And that uncomfortability may not be worth the risk to your brain. So you take a step back. You with me? How many of us have felt like we're just about to touch it, but then we pull back because we got a little bit scared? Who knows that feeling? We just pull back a little bit because we got a little bit scared. I know how many times I tried to quit my job, to pull the trigger on following my dreams to become a coach, but I just couldn't do it. I just kept getting scared and pulling back. It took me getting sacked during COVID to do it. And this is why I'm never pushy in selling people into our program, because it takes a lot of courage to pull the trigger. I did the same in my relationship. I stayed in it until I was forced out of it. Better the devil than we know, right? I had an amazing coaching call with our UK girls last week. It was only a small coaching call. We talked about the main reason people never truly change. And it's because it takes time and repetition and a willingness to get back up again. But why is it actually so hard? Like, why is this change so hard? Like, let's lose all the let's lose all the complicated words. Like, why is change just so hard? Here's why. And this is going to get really deep, so buckle up. Because permanent change in your life means changing your nervous system. This is the complex system that includes your brain, which originates all of the thoughts that you have about what you could do about your life, what's possible. You're trying to change your brain. That's a lot different than trying to burn some fat. It's a lot different. Whatever your life is right now is a product of something that you first thought about and then repeatedly did or didn't do as a result of that thought. Given that most great things in life take more than a couple of seconds to achieve or experience anything new and great, you're going to need to repeatedly do a thing or not do a thing that you're currently or not currently doing. In other words, you're going to need to do something you don't feel like doing for a long period of time. At the start, you can use your willpower to create force. You can use your willpower to create force. At the start, you can force yourself to eat less. At the start, you can force yourself to go to the gym. At the start, you can force yourself to walk more. But forcing it requires a lot of mental energy, a lot of brain space. It's like RAM on a computer. You don't have an unlimited amount. The computer can't handle an infinite amount of tasks. The brain's the same way. If something more important comes up, like a family emergency or a tough period of work or a sick kid or whatever, the brain is going to need to reclaim some space to deal with these things. And when it's not dealing with those things, it's no longer forcing the gym, the eating, the walking, the behaviors, because the focus has come off those things. So the only way to keep going with these actions that you've got so far through willpower is if you've created a habit, and this takes time. A habit is something that is low resistance, where you don't need to think too hard about it. It's almost like outsourcing, right? You've outsourced the thought to your subconscious. It does it itself. Creating a habit means changing the nervous system. It means changing the brain. And this is why it takes time. This is why everything feels like a struggle. It's not because you're failing. People interpret it as I'm failing. The reason is because you're ambitious. You want more than you currently have. So you are 95% of the time of your life, you're in the struggle. And I want you to think about this habit, almost like a chain reaction in your brain of nerve cells. And each of the nerve cells are giving each other a high five as they pass the habit on. So let's pretend you're a manager at work. And who's a manager at work? Let me know in the comments. So to get the work done, every morning you might have a team meeting. And every morning you fire up the troops. You improve the morale. And because of your effort and force, the productivity happens. And guess what? The high fives spread amongst the team. But it's reliant on you and your willpower to do it, to initiate things. It's not the habit of the team. So what happens when you're not there to initiate the work? With no meeting, the work doesn't get done. The team doesn't fire. There's no high fives. The habit has fallen apart because it's reliant on willpower. It's reliant on you starting it and forcing it. When trying to change anything in our life, we've got to get those high fives in the nervous system happening automatically, so that when we're not actively thinking about it, using our willpower, it just happens. That's what's meant by a habit, and this takes time. The reason I'm doing this episode right now is this. 2 years ago, we saw a pattern in our academy, okay? The pattern was this. We were getting amazing results over the first 6 months, results in terms of fat loss and waist circumference and changes to body composition. But then gradually, people were going back to their old ways when they left BBA, or if they entered a tough time of their life, such as kids got sick, work happened, something like that. So what we did was we created a mastermind program, a program aimed specifically at growing the mindsets of the crew inside it to show them what's possible in their life. This was very different to our base program that all of you are in right now, where we're predominantly tweaking our nutrition and our training to get a physical result. The mastermind program was, how do we help people make changes at this level so that they can change their life, but also so that they never regress and go backwards in their physical change. And this program has had some amazing success stories, and I don't want to start naming them because I'll miss a bunch of them. But having reviewed the program after 5 separate masterminds being run, I've come to 2 conclusions. Conclusion number 1 is that 12 weeks of a mastermind, which is what the current structure is too intense and not long enough to be of the highest benefit to the people inside it. We can't rush the process of mastering our mindset. Changing the body is simple. Changing our habits takes time. Learning to trust ourselves again takes time. Learning to work through the traumas that we have takes time. You don't go from 0 to hero in 12 weeks. And so that's the first conclusion I've made. The second conclusion was, we haven't run a mastermind for approximately a year. It requires a lot of emotional energy from the people and the coaches to hold a vulnerable space. And starting a new mastermind as if it's just like bang, 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 bang every 12 weeks, in addition to our base program, is life overload, to be honest. It's beyond what I can do. In other words, it's not good for our clients and it's not good for our coaches. Now, this is an interesting observation. The easy thing to do would be to keep doing what we've always done. Okay, that would be the easy thing to do. So interestingly, this program development is a classic example of what I am teaching in this podcast. The easy thing to do would just be to keep doing what we've always done. Although we want to do something different and we think our life and our program results would be better, the easy thing would be to just keep doing 12-week masterminds. But then the problem with that is that I can see an opportunity to make change and make impact on a much greater level, but I'm going to knock that back because that's too hard. Instead, I'll just keep doing what I'm always doing. And this is what most of us struggle with in our own lives. We keep doing what we've always done and wondering why things don't change. So I want to practice what I preach, and I'm changing and relaunching the way we do our mastermind. Instead, as a 12-month intake-based program. What this means is that there will be far more time to allow those seeds of change to happen rather than trying to rush them through every week and trying to force them and doing a topic and doing an activity and then moving on. What it will also do is that mean we don't have to go long periods of time with trying to work out the best way to get up the emotional energy to do our advanced program. Instead, we allow a monthly application-based model. Each month, we put applications up. If you join that month and then someone next to you is 8 months deep, it doesn't matter because the mindset components or the lifestyle components that we're dealing with are completely independent of each other. So it's evergreen and just keeps going. You need the next thing to keep growing. And so I'm responding to that. And so inside of our program, what's going to happen is you're going to get to month 4 to 6 and a few possible outcomes are going to happen. You're going to think, I've got this. And I just want to warn everyone, in most cases, you've not got this. Right? And I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to be really open about what I've seen over 1,300 transformations. The moment you think you've got this is the moment that you've made the mistake. What you've done is used willpower to force a result. But true change generally takes more than 4 to 6 months. You might have achieved a fantastic first start. Absolutely you have. But in order for these behaviors to become embedded and what we call embodied, it just takes longer to override the nervous system, right? The other thing that can possibly happen is that you get to the end of 4 to 6 months, and if you don't have something else to go to, you end up running out of future. You think to yourself, well, I want to keep growing. There's nothing for me to grow in here. So that you stop and then you start dying. The challenge is, with new levels, become new devils. New levels, new devils. People think that the higher they rise, the easier life becomes. Not true. I can just tell you straight away, not true. The higher you rise, the easier life becomes. That is not true. You become more resourceful at solving your problems. You generally, not always true, but generally don't sit in your shit as long, right? Like a baby with a shitty diaper, you just change it, right? But when you challenge yourself to bigger things that are outside of your comfort zone by a greater amount, you face bigger problems. It comes with bigger upside, but it also comes with greater risk. And when we talk about risk reward, that's what we're talking about. So going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is still displaying on your screen here, at the start, all you're really dealing with is, how do I get myself into a little bit better physical shape? Or how do I get the connection with myself again? And then you move to that green phase there where you can see it, where I'm working on my self-esteem and now this is starting to feel good and I'm feeling stronger inner and outer. But how do you get to that blue stage? Well, the first thing is to think that that blue stage is some fixed stage and you think once you get there that you're never going back. That's not true. That blue stage is infinite. It's infinite. It's just never ending because of new levels, new devils. If I can just give you an analogy to finish off. When you're at the bottom of the first mountain and all you can think about is just losing weight, you finally lose some weight. You might lose 10 or 20 kilograms. And because you've started to climb the mountain, the trajectory to which you can see the future is different than when you were at the bottom. So what happens is you climb up. Now you can see above the trees that used to block your view. Now you think, oh, and you can see the second mountain. The moment you see the second mountain, you're thrust back into the gap of life where you're like, fuck, this is going to take me ages. It's not that you're not good enough, it's that you're back in the gap again. And guess what? You climb to the top of mountain 2, and then you get a glimpse of mountain 3. And so on. So it's never that you reach the top of the mountain. And when we talk about the phrase that Steve Jobs said in his infamous speech that he gave, which was that the dots never connect looking forward. They only connect looking back. In the same way, when you're at the start, you can't see the mountain behind the mountain behind the mountain because you haven't got the trajectory of the view. But when you look back from the 5th, the 10th mountain, and you look back at the things that you used to struggle with, and you think to yourself like, how the fuck did I struggle with that? It's just where you were at that point in time. You needed to learn a lesson. And just to be very, very clear, I am learning the lesson. I am not immune to any of this at all. So the whole idea behind a mastermind program is to give you the vessel for which you can play bigger, to burn the boats on your old self. Keep your eyes open. The applications will be launching over the next week. I thought it was very important to come in and actually talk about it because a lot of people make the mistake of becoming complacent and they think, I've got this. And nothing's more painful to me as a coach to see someone become complacent and take the foot off the gas, thinking that they've mastered their mindset, but all they've actually done is used a whole lot of willpower. And once you start to realize, that's not a bad thing. The willpower is great. But if you want to change on new levels, I'll tell you what, just working another hour, pushing yourself, you tap out. You don't have an unlimited amount of bandwidth. So you have to be able to call upon something a little bit higher than just working a little bit harder and exhausting yourself more. Does this make sense? So guys, hopefully there's some power in that at all levels, wherever you are, whether you're in your first week or your third year with us. This has been the Better Body Academy podcast, the podcast that you can come to for the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs being thrown out the door. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.